Today's menu: hypocrisy, incompetence, and a mayor who apparently thinks jet lag is a valid excuse for ignoring a disaster. Karen Bass, our fearless mayor and leader here in Los Angeles, left town on a very, very short trip to Ghana, just long enough for a wind-driven inferno to rage through our beautiful city. And now she's back with a classic Democrat playbook: blame shifting, vague promises, and a solemn commitment to investigating the thing she should have prevented in the first place. And she said all of this with a straight face in a recent Fox 11 interview, because nothing says transparency like getting grilled on local news after dodging accountability for weeks.
I felt absolutely terrible not being here for my city.
LA Mayor Karen Bass gives us her first sit-down TV interview since the Palisades fire began, and opens up about traveling on a diplomatic mission to Ghana with dangerous winds in LA's forecast.
When I say it was a mistake, absolutely, the idea that I was not present was very painful.
We know that there was warnings about the weather before you went, and you still went. What was the thought process behind going to Ghana?
When the White House called and asked me if I would represent the president, I said yes. It was going to be a very, very short trip, over a weekend and 2 business days.
The mayor says LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley did not call her to warn her in advance of the trip, and didn't do the, quote, normal preparations for this kind of wind event.
That type of preparation didn't happen. If that had, I will tell you, Alex, I wouldn't have even gone to San Diego, let alone leave the country.
But what do you mean there were warnings you weren't aware of? Because I know we were talking about it on the news. A lot of people were talking about the problems, warning that this was going to be a huge...
So it didn't reach that level to me to say something terrible could happen and maybe you shouldn't have gone on the trip.
Why didn't it happen?
But to me, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's one of the things we need to look.
Well, look who finally decided to show up. Mayor Karen Bass, emerging from her woke bunker to let us all know that in hindsight, maybe skipping town while our beautiful city burned wasn't the best call. Well, you don't say. Imagine being a firefighter on the front lines battling wind-driven infernos, only to turn on the news and see your mayor rubbing elbows in Ghana like she's on a semester abroad. I felt absolutely terrible not being here for my city. Oh, did you, Karen? Did you feel worse than the people whose homes turned into overpriced charcoal briquettes? Or did the guilt only hit you when you saw your approval ratings go up in flames too? And then we get to my favorite part, her airtight excuse. Well, the White House called. Oh well, that changes everything. When the White House calls, you have to drop everything, even disaster prevention, apparently. I mean, it's not like Gavin Newsom stayed in California during the floods or Ron DeSantis stayed in Florida for hurricanes. Oh, wait, they did. But nope, Karen Bass had to go. Why? What was the pressing issue? Was Joe Biden in Ghana personally? Was there a hostage situation, a nuclear crisis? No, she was there to represent, aka smile for the cameras, while LA residents inhaled enough smoke to qualify for a Marlboro sponsorship. And the cherry on top, I wasn't warned. Oh, so the mayor of Los Angeles needs a personal carrier pigeon from the fire chief to tell her that Santa Ana winds plus drought equals inferno. Next, she'll tell us she didn't realize homelessness was bad because no one sent her a rotting carcass. Karen, you quite literally run the city. You're the mayor, not a clueless intern waiting for an email reminder. Maybe, just maybe, you could have turned on the weather report like the rest of us peasants. But the real kicker, when pressed on why she ignored widely known extreme fire conditions, she shrugs and goes, oh, me, I don't know. A mayor, a literal mayor, saying she doesn't know why she didn't do her job. Fantastic. Next time you get pulled over, try to tell the cop, me, I don't know, the car was speeding. I have no control of the car or knowledge of its whereabouts. And see if that gets you out of a ticket. At this point, even Lori Lightfoot is taking notes on how to dodge accountability. And of course, when asked what accountability looks like, she defaults to the politician's favorite response: meaningless bureaucratic filler. We need to assess. We need an investigation. We need to understand. Translation: absolutely nothing is going to happen. But please, stop asking me questions immediately. The only thing Karen Bass is committed to investigating is whether she can fail upwards into another term. So what have we learned? That Karen Bass is allergic to leadership, accountability, and apparently local news. She skipped town, blamed everyone else, and now wants to spend the next 5 years fixing what she ignored, because nothing says swift action like solving a crisis on the same timeline as an Avengers movie release. But don't worry, she's definitely running for re-election, because in California, the worse you govern, the better your career prospects.
There are now 2 investigations underway, one by LA's Fire Commission, another by the Fire Safety Research Institute.
Everything that happened, including that, needs to be examined.
Have you nothing to say today?
When Bass returned from Ghana, she was ambushed by a Sky News reporter from Ireland. She didn't respond to him for several minutes, a clip that's been seen millions of times.
Your position?
Yes, it was an ambush, and I wasn't sure who he was. And that is unfortunate, because I see the way that looks, as though I was avoiding. But when you're getting off a plane and you've been on a plane 17 hours and somebody hits you with a camera, I wish in hindsight my response had been better.
This week, the LA Times quoted former fire officials saying that the fire department could have pre-deployed at least 10 additional engines to the Palisades.
You gotta hand it to Karen Bass, resorting to the most overused political trick in the book, the investigation shuffle. You know the drill. Whenever someone in power gets caught screwing up, they announce an investigation that just happens to take forever and lead absolutely nowhere. Everything that happened needs to be examined. Oh, really, Karen? And who's running the investigation? Oh, right, that's you. The woman who ignored the warnings, bailed on her own city, and let the whole thing spiral out of control is now personally overseeing the investigation into who again? Herself. Yes, that's like letting the getaway driver be the lead detective on a bank robbery case. And then there's the infamous ambush clip. Now, in normal human language, an ambush is when armed insurgents jump out of the bushes and take you hostage. In Karen Bass's world, an ambush is when a reporter asks her a question she wasn't expecting. I wasn't sure who he was. Lady, he was holding a microphone, not a crowbar. This isn't Taken, and you're not Liam Neeson. Neither his daughter in that movie. What did you think was actually going to happen? He was going to ask you a math problem? You were clearly dodging questions because you knew exactly who he was. Someone who wasn't going to let you get away with your usual nonsense. And let's talk about the real hardship. She was on a plane for 17 whole hours. Wow. Truly a survivor. Someone cue the Sarah McLachlan music. Funny how exhaustion doesn't stop her from flying all over the world for PR photo ops, but the second someone asks her a tough question, suddenly she's too jet lagged to function. Newsflash, the people in your city don't care how tired you are. Their homes were burning while you were sipping complimentary champagne in first class. But here's the best part. The fact that the fire department could have pre-deployed 10 extra fire engines and didn't. And Karen's response, another investigation. Because if there's one thing LA doesn't have enough of, it's bureaucratic black holes. Imagine your house is on fire, and instead of sending the fire department, the mayor shows up and says, don't worry, we're launching a full investigation into why your house is burning. Should have some answers in 5 to 10 years, maybe even longer, depending on how our bureaucrats feel today. Look, I think it's evident that Karen isn't leading. She's covering her own ass. She fled the scene, ignored the warnings, blamed everyone else but herself, and now wants to investigate her own negligence. That's like a drunk driver demanding to be his own judge at a DUI trial. And the worst part, you already know nothing's going to come of this. She'll spend months studying the problem while LA residents study new ways to breathe in wildfire smoke without dying.
Did the city fail the residents of the Palisades?
Well, again, all of that has to be examined with experts.
What does accountability look like to you, and is it time that somebody be fired for this?
Well, again, I think it's premature to say now, but I do think that we have to examine everything, and that is going to take place very soon.
How do you assess the job performance of the chief of the fire department?
Well, I think that that's something that has to be assessed. I need to understand why things were handled differently this time than they've been handled before.
And why do you think that is?
I'm not sure.
We met up with Mayor Bass at the Impacted Worker and Family Recovery Center, now open in Culver City. It's one of 4 locations for those impacted by the fires.
And it doesn't matter where you live, where you're from, you can come here and get an array of resources, from direct cash assistance to unemployment, job assistance, training.
I asked, what's a realistic timetable for rebuilding the Palisades?
3 years would probably be the fastest, but probably it would be more like 5. So it really depends on the individual circumstances.
The mayor told me she's committed to running for re-election in 2026 and winning over her critics.
And they don't have faith that you can lead the city right now.
Well, you know
what do you say to those? What do you say to those critics?
It is my responsibility to disprove that.
Yeah.
It is my responsibility to prove that I can lead, and I am, the rebuilding and the recovery process.
Looks like Karen, I'm investigating myself Bass, is rolling out her best political tap dancing routine. And folks, it's a masterclass in absolutely nothing. You'd think after disappearing while her city burned, she'd at least come prepared with a good excuse. Nope. Instead, we get the Great Deflection Tour of 2025, a collection of bureaucratic buzzwords, meaningless investigation, and a level of responsibility dodging that would make a corrupt CEO jealous. She gets hit with a question: did the city fail the residents of the Palisades? Easy answer, right? Yes. But Karen, she goes full magic trick and makes accountability disappear. Poof. Well, again, all of that has to be examined by experts. Ah, yes, the ever-elusive experts. The same ones who will no doubt take years to determine that maybe, just maybe, letting your fire department operate underprepared wasn't the best move. At this point, she might as well have answered, that's a great question. I will now pretend it never existed. Then we get the accountability question. Now, normal leaders, when confronted with catastrophic mismanagement, might say something decisive, maybe even fire someone, but nope, not Karen. No. She goes with a classic, I think it's premature to say now. Oh, really? It wasn't premature to jump on a plane to Ghana while LA was under fire warnings. It wasn't premature to ignore emergency forecasts and let a disaster unfold. But now we have to sit around and wait for the accountability fairy to bless us with wisdom. Sure. At this rate, we'll have a resolution right around the time California fixes homelessness, which is likely after tens of billions of dollars evaporate. And her response to the fire chief's response, well, that's something that has to be assessed. Wow. Groundbreaking. She really thought hard about that one. Imagine you hire a babysitter, come home to find the house on fire, and she looks you dead in the eye and says, we need to assess how this happened. Lady, you're the mayor. If you need a special commission to figure out whether leaving your city understaffed during a fire was a bad idea, maybe you need to be assessed. Oh, and when she's asked why this disaster was handled differently than past emergencies, I'm not sure. The woman running for America's second largest city just hit us with a shrug emoji. Imagine an airline pilot announcing over the intercom, folks, we seem to be crashing. Why? I don't know. This is what leadership looks like in LA. Mystified confusion when things go up in flames, followed by an investigation into who's responsible. Spoiler, never the people in charge. But wait, there's more. Now, she's standing at a disaster relief center listing all the wonderful government resources available, because when your house burns down due to city negligence, the real solution is unemployment assistance. Great. Because when I think of rebuilding a city, I definitely think of a job training seminar. And the timeline for actually fixing anything, 3 to 5 years. Which is just enough time for Karen to get reelected and conveniently forget about all of this until the next disaster. And of course, for the grand finale, her reelection bid. It's my responsibility to prove that I can lead. No, Karen, that's what you were supposed to be doing from the beginning. This isn't an internship where you get a second chance because you're still learning. You were elected to lead and you failed. The proof is literally smoldering in the Palisades. So what's the lesson here? Karen Bass isn't running a city, she's running a cover-up. She botched the response, ignored the warnings, dodged the press, and now wants to investigate herself. Like some kind of self-appointed crime detective. At this point, LA should just list government incompetence as a natural disaster. And look, if you're an Angelino like myself and you want 4 more years of, I don't know, and we need to assess that, then by all means, vote for her again. Just don't act surprised when the next crisis hits and she's making TikToks from a state-funded vacation. At what point do we stop pretending this is leadership and start calling it for what it is? An endless cycle of failure, deflection, and political self-preservation. How many times do we let the people in charge investigate themselves and come back with the same hollow conclusions? The game is rigged, and they're counting on you to be too distracted, too exhausted, or too numb to call it out. But ask yourself, who really benefits from a system where incompetence is met with excuses instead of consequences? Where the only real accountability is reserved for the taxpayer who has to foot the bill for these disasters. You don't need another commission, another study, or another politician promising to assess the wreckage they created. You need to start seeing the pattern for what it is. A carefully rehearsed performance designed to keep you from demanding real change. So the next time someone like Karen Bass stands in front of a camera spewing vague assurances and bureaucratic nonsense, don't just listen, watch what they do, because that's where the truth is buried. Underneath the smoke and ashes of another crisis they swore they'd never let happen again. Anyway, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.